Do you think a historic episode like your 100th episode could have existed on Fox?
Historic in which sense?
A buck shares the same sex kiss,
Gotcha,
right?
gotcha, yes.
Hello, beautiful human. I'm Zach. That's Stanley. Welcome to the studio. Oliver Starr.
Yo.
All right.
Kind of your real name, but like it's your grandmother's name, right?
Yeah, so it is in the family. When you join the acting union in the UK, you can't do it if there's somebody, or you can't do it under that name if there's somebody already with that name, and my real name was already taken. So I wanted to stay in the family, so I took my grandma's name.
Oliver Jones. It does feel like that is like there has to be a few Oliver Joneses
Yeah,
out there.
right, exactly. And I toyed with changing my first name, and that just felt like, how do I introduce myself to people when I meet them? Because if it's in a professional setting, do I have to use the stage name? Or so it just felt easier to change my last name.
You have a very unique accent.
Yes.
It is definitely a deep collection of things.
I don't know why. I mean, I'm born and raised in London.
But it also sounds like slightly South African
I
a
get
little
that
bit.
all the time. I didn't really grow up around anyone South African. I guess I grew up with a lot of different cultures around me. So maybe I took on different speech patterns. I don't know. But yeah, born and raised in London. So I don't quite have an explanation for it.
Is there any attachment to the fact that you have to speak in a mostly American accent when you're doing things like 911?
I don't think so, because I think this way that I talk predates 911 or any work that I did in an American accent. So maybe it has slightly added to it over the years, but this weird thing was already happening before 911.
But it's weird. I can hear elements of Buck's voice in your normal speaking voice.
Oh, interesting. Oh, well, then maybe I have started to blend together.
Is there a process that you have to go through before you can actually become the character that you are today, or at least take on an entirely new accent, to do it in a way that you can ensure is up to a standard that nobody can kind of call you on it?
So my biggest thing with that was like confidence. And so the way that I would do it, so I moved here in 2016. I came out here for the first time in 2014.
For a girl, right?
When I moved, yes.
Yeah, you fucking chase love.
Yeah, which, the best way to do it.
Change your fucking life.
There you go, absolutely.
I mean, dude, like you don't get work like the work you've been doing in the UK.
Correct, which is part of the reason that, so when I came out here in 2014, that was purely just for work. The girl you're referencing that I came out here for, that was in 2016. But when I did come out, what I would do is I'd go into coffee shops or whatever it was, and I'd speak in an American accent to see if they went, what? What did you just, and the fact that they didn't gave me then confidence to, okay, I'm pulling this off and can move forward with it. And so just kind of trying to integrate it into my everyday life to see if I would get called out on it.
Where does the process begin, though, when you need to learn how to not necessarily wipe away the way you currently speak, but take on an entirely new dialect?
Yeah.
Because, dude, there's a lot of nuances to it.
There are. I think a lot of people think accent is just sounds, and it's not, right? So dialect is rhythm and intonation and even different vocabulary, So there are different ways. Also, growing up in the UK, we watch a lot of American television. So we're always, even if we're not consciously thinking about it, you're always exposed to the accent, to that dialect. But yeah, I would, try and develop an ear for it and pick out different sounds, and then you just layer things on top of each other. I would sit on a bus going around London, and I would just call things out as I see them, so that I would have random kind of variations of words leading into each other, so different sounds leading into each other, and then just slowly build it up. And obviously living here, helps because you are even more exposed to it day in, day out, and then you just hope for the best.
Is there a moment where you realize you have to figure this out to be an actor? Okay, so it's like interesting. Like, is there a point where you realize you have to learn this whole other like different accents to even be successful? Because there are some actors from the UK that like have managed to not do it. Like I've never seen them once do any other accent but their own.
So I would say I've never worked. I think you quite correctly pointed out my accent is a kind of strange thing. So I would say I've never worked in my accent. Even in the UK, I would have to take it in a direction so that it fit more of a mold. But I definitely did believe that, coming out to America, not only do I have to learn this accent, but I want to, because it's a big pet peeve of mine if I do listen to things and I'm like, nah, he's British. So I really wanted to feel comfortable, and I also wanted to be at a level of confidence with it where I could walk into audition rooms and I could have the like pre-conversation, hello, how are you doing? I could already be American.
Amazing.
Because I never wanted them, I didn't want to come in British and then during my scene and when I'm trying to, get this job, what they're really focusing on is, does he sound American? So I didn't want to have that preconception. So I would go in American, audition American, and then I'd switch back to British to kind of give this jump scare of, oh, he's British. And I wouldn't even switch to, I'd switch into like the most bumbling Hugh Grant-esque British to really kind of juxtapose, all right, he was American, now look how English he is.
Any part of you surprised that you landed a show of this magnitude? I know it was weird. You got an email about auditioning while you literally like heard it in the news that Ryan Murphy was doing the show 911. A show that so far has gone 8 seasons, correct?
Yeah.
And by the way, leaves Fox, goes to ABC. And I feel like just has the opportunity to get even bigger with like really well integrated episodes in a way that only ABC could do it.
Yeah, it's I am surprised. And I mean, it's very surreal to me to this day. I mean, as you say, we're moving into 8 seasons now, which in itself is like super rare these days.
Yeah, but you're a show built to go.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
you could go 50.
For
You
sure.
could go as long as Law and Order.
Yeah, no, that it is absolutely,
NCIS.
procedural television has, you're right, the ability to do that. And this show, it has a different kind of style and tone. Like it kind of makes fun of itself. It doesn't take itself too seriously. So I think it does offer something different. But yeah, I mean, if I take a step back, I'm like, wow, I can't quite believe that, I am doing this and the people I get to work with. And if you take me back 10 years or 15 years when, I suppose, not quite 15 years, when I'm like early 20s or late teens and thinking, I think I want to be an actor. And to put me here today, this is it. This is where I wanted to be. I'm doing the thing. So yeah, it's very surreal. Well,
there's a difference in dream, right? Like some people just dream of being a working actor and some people dream of being the most famous actor in the world.
Sure.
I think you've kind of like, you can reach this in between, right? Where you could work consistently and also be really well known for this one character that you bring to life.
I think that balance is the dream, right? Where you want to be able to work consistently and get to a point where you hopefully have, enough say in the work that you want to be doing. I don't think that life of being like uber famous is certainly not appealing to me. And people I do know in that realm, it doesn't always seem super fun. And I like to go in, do my work. Hopefully it's well received and gets a great reaction. And then I like to disappear into solitude and walk the dogs and just have a quiet life. I think the balance between the two, that's the ideal for me.
Has any part of you come to peace, though, with playing Buck for the next, 20 years? Because, again, that's how these shows operate. And if a show like this is successful, like an NCIS or... I mean, by the way, I'm pretty sure there's already spinoffs to this one or have been.
Yes.
So,
it's funny, right? Because, and we've had conversations, myself and the cast, about that, right? Is this it? Do we just say, hey, this is a great show. We have, and that's something to its credit. We have a great time and we really love each other, which in itself is a form of currency, right? Liking the people that you work with. Would you feel like you're getting the same creative fulfillment after 20 years? Probably not. But then at the same time, it's like you make a lot of money and you can probably find that creative fulfillment elsewhere.
Ellen Pompeo is directing episodes.
Right. And has the freedom to do whatever she wants at any point in her life,
and dictates that character, too. Mariska Hargitay is the same exact way. It's really cool. There's, a bunch of unique examples of shows built like this that, once you reach a certain threshold of episodes, you really can go the distance. I mean, maybe I'm crazy.
No, you're right. I mean, and in fact, the move to ABC and the fact that not only has it survived that move,
exciting,
but it's done really well. And if anything, has kind of garnered a bigger and a different audience, that in itself was a huge test. To do that in the 7th season of a show, to move it from one network to another, will the audience come with it? Will it garner this new audience? And the fact that it has passed both those tests, it very possibly does have the legs to, have a really, really long run.
Do you think a historic episode like your 100th episode could have existed on Fox?
Historic in which sense?
A buck shares the same sex kids, right?
Gotcha. Yes. I don't know. I don't. A big change from season 6 moving into season 7 was this man Tim Minear came back to write the show, who was the showrunner from season 1 until 4, and then he went over to the spin-off show for 5 and 6, and then he came back. And so I don't know if it was a network thing as much as he basically said, I want to write the show I want to write, right? And he's very much a man who is not going to write a thing that, one, he doesn't want to write, but he's also not going to write it for anybody else because anybody else wants him to. He's very sure that he's going to make the thing he wants to make. And he believed that this was the most authentic and honest way to continue to tell the story. I don't know if it was as much ABC as it was just him coming back to the show and him saying, this is my vision. What do you think? And I totally agreed.
But you've said that you thought Buck was bisexual from the very beginning.
Yeah, so I don't think, certainly in the early seasons, it wasn't intentionally put in there. But if you watch back now, there are moments where it's like, hold on, there is chemistry between this character and this character. And there are moments. And the way that I have always intentionally played him was that he was seeking something in his life and he didn't know what it was. And now, as we've gone on more and more and had this conversation with him and, what do you think about this story? It's like, yes, that's the thing that he's been looking for. So I don't know if we would have had that on Fox, but we've had it on ABC and I'm super thankful for it. And people, the response has been amazing. Like genuinely, I'm overwhelmed with, and there are always going to be some people, but for the most part, it's been incredible, the response.
It's beautiful.
It is. And the messages I've got from people just saying, this means so much to me. As specific as I've had firefighters message me and tell me I'm not out, but seeing your portrayal of Buck and seeing them move the story in this direction is really huge for me. So, how could you ever expect it to have, such kind of cultural impact as that? It's really amazing.
It's really special. I'm curious, what was Buck looking for in his relationship with Connie Britton's character? That was a weird one, eh?
You mean in the terms of age?
Yeah.
Sure, she's older, but then at the same time, so her character was 42, I believe we played her at the beginning of the seasons, right?
And what is Buck played at?
So Buck was, I think we referenced him at 26 in the first season.
Interesting.
So 15, 16 years. We probably do see a lot of relationships that way. And this is a thing that, certainly at the time I would talk about in interviews that, we see that age difference in male and female with the man being older on TV all the time. Like a 30-year-old woman and like a 45-year-old man, we see that all the time. But it was quite rare to see it the opposite way. And I always loved that we, on the show, we never really made a thing of it. I think that was quite an interesting and brave way to play it. We didn't ever play Buck going, she's quite a bit older than me or anything like that. We just played, hey, he really likes her. And listen, you say about what was he looking for in that relationship. Maybe there was something in the fact that she was more mature than he was because he had been this kind of playboy womanizer running around, being a bit too, gung-ho in his life. Maybe he needed a more mature woman to kind of anchor him down and show him what was important in life.
Hello, beautiful human. Every year, millions of gamers experience IGSS, inadequate gaming setup syndrome. Luckily, a cure has been found. You have to go beyond with the Vibrasonic mattress by Beyond Sleep. This thing has 6 built-in subwoofers, USB ports for charging, LED lights so you never stub your toe. It gives you an acoustic massage when you want it, plus adjustable degrees of comfort. this right here is the best way to game ever. Cure your IGSS today at BeyondSleepTech.com. How often are you sitting down with the writers and like breaking down Buck's motives? Like, also, how do you break down this character?
Very rarely, if ever. I mean, now that Tim has come back, Tim's quite collaborative. So, for example, for this storyline of exploring the bisexuality, you know, he called me and he asked me if I was on board with it, and you know, I said yes. But even at that point, and I had some ideas. You know, he told me that the hardest scene for him to break in that episode was the kiss. He said, "How do I get these two characters close enough to physically actually be able to kiss?" And because the story up until that point hasn't been one of certainly not knowing that he was yearning for it. So how do they end up in these close quarters? So, you know, I'll text him some ideas and he'll say things like, "Yeah, sure, maybe." And then it will never end up in the episode. Or that's why I'm the writer, you're the actor. So it's very rarely, I think, is there that kind of discussion unless it's a very specific storyline and there are questions to be asked. But by this point, you know, we are now shooting episode 8 of the season. So I think we're on our 104th episode. We know the characters to some extent. We know what the writing is going to look like and what they're after. So there doesn't need to be too much discussion unless there does need to be, in which case there will be.
Do you remember the moment you realized you knew this character?
Honestly, it was before I had the part. When I got the audition for it, I was like, I know this guy. And it feels weird to say, but I kind of always knew I was going to get this part. From the second I got the audition, I was like, I'm going to do a thing here that, and I maybe that's not true. Maybe it's not that I know that I'm going to get it, but I know I'm going to offer a version of this character that I don't think many other actors are going to come in and bring. There was just something in him that I felt very connected to, and I felt actually like my Britishness was going to play in because there was this like cheekiness to him, which I don't think is a very American term, but
I say it 77 times.
Oh,
a
okay.
day.
Oh, so maybe it is, but
no, it isn't. My boyfriend's Australian.
Okay. So, like knowing like that I could bring that side to him, I felt like was going to be something different.
How did you show that in the audition?
Well, the audition scene was that I had just chased a woman down in the fire truck to have sex with her.
Okay.
So there was plenty of scope to have a little bit of cheekiness in that scene. But I was at this stage, right, where I was trying something new so if you go into an audition in LA, 99% of the guys are in the same kind of t-shirt, like the jeans, the boots. And I was doing that thing, right? And I realized that I was very much trying to fit this mold of like LA actor, leading role. And I was like, I'm going to go in the way that I feel most relaxed. And so I just go in like sweatpants and a hoodie and because I wanted to feel like I could be doing this at home. Like I could be reading this. I just wanted to feel more in my element. So I think I came in I was just relaxed and calm about it. Because as I say, I felt like I was offering a version of this character that, which, you know, listen, doesn't mean you're going to get it, but I knew that it was going to at least I was going to get to the conversation part of the audition and it was going to offer something new.
After 7 seasons, were you looking for like a shakeup of the character? Because like at a certain point, you're like, I've been doing this for so long. So when they decided to go the bisexual route, were you like, okay, this is going to change up the show a bit, something fresh?
Yeah, I think for the past like 3 or 4, maybe not 3 or 4, 2 or 3 say seasons, there has kind of been a bit of a sticking point with the character where he gets in a relationship, it seems to be going really well. She leaves. He goes, I'm going to learn to be by myself now. Gets in another relationship and kind of, you know, it was this kind of cycle that we were going through, and I don't think they were entirely sure how to break it. So yeah, I do think there was an element of wanting something new for this character, which definitely would have contributed into it, yeah.
So what was your mindset on the day going into the shoot where you're like, okay, I have to have my first kiss with a man?
Yeah.
How do you prepare for that? Because that's not something I'm sure you're used to.
Yeah, so I spoke to, so the actor's name is Lou Ferrigno Jr. We spoke on the phone the day before, and it kind of tried to talk about it, and I kind of just said to him, listen, like, it's a kiss. Like, you just commit to it, go for it, it's fine. Like, that's kind of was my big thing to him. I just don't want to feel like you're ever uncomfortable. Like, we just have to do this thing, and this is the story we're telling. And so I just went in fully, and I you know, for me as well, in the scene, certainly for our first kiss, there are some later on that are much more initiated by me, but in that kiss, I'm mid-sentence and he kisses me, and I'm meant to be kind of stunned by it. So, you know, that was kind of easier to play in itself. But honestly, so we have Angela Bassett on our show, right? She recently, we were talking about the kiss, me and her, and then she recently said on a red carpet this and exposed me. But I mean, I basically just it didn't feel any different. I mean, you got your eyes closed, like it's just lips are lips, and
It's true.
he had some, like, honestly, it didn't feel any different than any kiss would with anybody. So yeah, it was totally fine. And you know, as these things go, you do it so many times that by the end of the day, we knew each other. I was going to say we knew each other inside out, but yeah, you know, it wasn't a big deal. Yeah.
Angela Bassett's an icon.
She is, man. It's amazing. Like, I still can't quite process that. One, I get to do this show with her, but two, like, it's a network procedural.
It's huge.
And you know, I was texting one of our other co-stars about her recently because. So we started the season with this big kind of cruise ship emergency.
Oh, I saw the billboards.
Okay, right, yeah.
Right at my exit.
So there you go. So I text my friend Aisha, and I was like, you know what? Like, Angela gives it everything. Like, you could imagine a world where somebody of that stature comes into a show on network TV and kind of just phones it in, and there's not a moment that she does not commit to and, like, crush. It's really amazing.
From the very beginning, though.
Absolutely.
She's incredible.
And you know, like, never has a bad word to say about anything. Works the Saturdays, the Sundays that we work. Never, ever turns up with like, she is, as far as just like level of being a professional. And I think that's the thing, and kind of what we were alluding to earlier. She, even though she doesn't feel like a star. She feels like an actor. Like, she turns up and she does her work.
But that's what you need for a show like this.
Yeah.
And that's what you need for a show like this to be successful, right? And even to run this long. You get what I'm saying?
For sure,
Like,
yeah. I mean, it's hard. Like, it is. It's a crazy show with a crazy schedule. But then, you know, especially when we started the show, to have her, Connie, Pete Krauser, like, have these three big names, like, anchoring it down, but who were, like, supreme professionals. There were just so many ingredients that contributed to, you know, the success that it has now become.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, it is. And it's, you know, I think it's doing good things, and it's telling the right stories, and it's trying to do something positive. It's not trying to just exist in the gray. Like, it's trying to do things where people end up talking and spark discussion, you know, like this storyline. I think it's pretty amazing.
What do you have to say to the people that have negative comments about where the storyline is? They're like, oh, this show isn't for me anymore. I'm not watching.
I don't really understand it, to be honest with you. Like, so first of all, we've always had queer characters in the show. Like, always. The very first episode, I think it's the first scene in the first episode, is Angela's husband coming out to her.
Yeah, that's
Like,
crazy too.
Like, it is, from the very, very get-go, had queer characters in it, right? Aisha's character, she's married in it. We have somebody in the call center who's openly gay. So if suddenly one other character, I just think, like, why? Then why were you watching to begin with? But, you know, one of the things that I've seen a lot of, which I think is silly, is, you know, oh, but he was always he was such a womanizer, he was such a playboy. And I guess I have like two responses to those people. One of, like, I don't know this for sure, but I'm pretty sure a lot of, like, young men who are struggling or confused about their feelings towards other men probably run in the opposite direction and end up having some kind of womanizing past. But then the other thing is, you know, we're telling the story of a bisexual character here, which means he is attracted to more than one gender. So we can't minimize the fact that he has been attracted to women and will continue to be attracted to women. Like, that's the whole point here. He is bisexual. So him having a past where he was in relationships with women is not only, like, I mean, it's integral to his bisexuality. If people want to stop watching the show, no. Okay, we're already renewed for season 8. Right, go watch something else. But yeah, and I have spoken out about that a little bit. And, you know, honestly, like, it's less about me speaking to the people that don't want to watch it, and it's more a reminder to the community that is watching it that there's nothing shameful about this. And I'm so excited to get to play this part. And you know, I think it's really good representation. I really do. And, like, the way that I think about him is like I don't think about him now as a queer character, right? Like, his bisexuality is not his one defining trait. I think of him as a character who's queer. He's like, he has this multitude of different things to him, and
like
this
any
is just
person, though,
exactly, and that's what I mean by, like, it's representation. It's not just, he's not just shoehorned in and like, look, we've got a bisexual in here. It's like, no, he's a fully fleshed out character, and that's just one aspect of who he is, and he's going to be flawed and he's going to have things wrong, but that it all builds into him being a real person, and this is one important aspect, but not his entire personality.
And as somebody who's watched the show, like first of all, like, it's a fucking incredible show, regardless of the sexual orientation of the characters.
Right.
And if anything, like, it adds to an even better fucking storyline. The show starts with a married man telling his wife that he is gay. It is wild. In addition to that, people are bleeding. They're dying. Lives are being saved. It is fucking nuts to a point where it does scare me. The storylines freak me out a little bit because it could happen tomorrow.
Yeah.
Do you ever think that? And a lot of it is ripped from reality to a certain degree.
A lot of it, yeah. A lot of them are like Florida headlines, you know. A lot of them come from like YouTube, and it's China or Florida are a lot of the inspiration, certainly in the early seasons. But there have definitely been things where we have done it, and then Tim will text me like a headline, and it's just happened for real. Like, we have to be careful with what we write here, because some of it is
the
coming
universe
true.
is listening.
Yeah. But, you know, so we shoot and it's set in LA, and I see people be like, well, I'm not going to the Santa Monica Pier anymore because I saw a tsunami happen on 911. And but I think it's fun, you know. People love that stuff. You know, Final Destination. We love to see like the craziest shit happen, but you know, I think that's an aspect of the show as well, that if it does happen, hey, look, there are these people that will run into that danger and try and save your life.
It is really cool.
It is.
And that episode is wild. It's like, it's you and some kid, right? Trying to navigate a tsunami.
It was honestly one of the best times of my life.
Really?
We shot it we went down to Mexico because they have these huge water tanks that they built for Titanic. So there are these like massive water tanks, but they meet the ocean. So when you look at it from one direction, it just looks like it goes on forever. So they built the Santa Monica Pier in this water tank, but it's sort of like an infinity pool kind of thing.
Sick.
So when you look in one direction, it feels like you're just in the ocean. And I literally, we shot, you know, me and the kid and his stunt double. It was exhausting, swimming up and down this thing. There's debris, there's wave makers. You know, it feels at this point like you're not making network television. It feels like you're in a blockbuster movie set.
Yeah, totally.
And it was so much. And I remember getting back to my hotel room at the end of the day, and I took this like super long hot shower. But I was just like, I can't believe that I get to do this. It was truly like a real moment of recollection of I'm really doing this thing. And it was big, and it felt big, and it felt like we were really making something above and beyond.
It's great TV.
It is, and it was, you know. And
Still is.
Yeah, it's the kind of difficult part is just like, how do you keep raising that bar, you know?
I don't know. It's weird. Like, shows like this that are ripped from reality always find a way.
I guess. Well, because I guess the whole life being stranger than fiction thing.
Yeah.
So I guess you just, as long as the world is still moving on, crazy things are going to be happening, and and we can just steal them. So we'll
I mean,
take it.
Law and Order has been going on for forever.
Yeah.
And you can't tell me that those crimes are not ripped from reality.
For sure. And I guess what the thing is as well, right? Like, there are so many variations on a theme. Like, you can do a plane crash 50 different ways.
100%.
So there are only so many, like, big ones, but you can tell that story in a bunch of different ways.
Bro, if somebody showed up to Seattle Grace Hospital tomorrow with a gun, I'd watch it again.
Right.
If a guy showed up to Seattle Grace with another bomb stuck in his stomach, I'd watch it again.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's like, it's...
And if you have enough episodes, enough time has passed anyway.
100%.
It's not like you're not doing that one episode to the next. You know, you got 4 seasons in between. So, yeah, you got a little bit of time to forget it and move on.
You got to watch 911. It's waiting for you. It's on Hulu, on ABC. You can watch it live there, but stream it on Hulu. And I'm also pretty sure Disney Plus, depending on your territory and where you're at in the world. No?
Sure, I think so.
I mean,
yes, it's
it is
around the
different
world.
depending
Yes,
on
yes,
where
yes,
you're
yes.
at.
You are right. Yeah.
Wow, you're vegan, eh? 6 years or something?
Longer than that now. Coming on 8.
Why? I mean, it's great. That's amazing. He is too. I am not vegan, but
No, that's okay.
live veg.
Yeah. It was an ethical thing for me. Like, I really love animals and felt like if I was going to say that and really mean that, I probably shouldn't eat them. Yeah. So yeah, it's been 8 years, and there have been very brief periods where I've fallen off, but mostly like towards the earlier years. Like, I think my second year, I dropped out of it for about 6 months because I can't really remember why. Maybe it was like questioning the health aspect of it or anything, but it ended up being the way that I feel best about myself. But I never, ever try and put it on anybody else because I know, there's this stereotype of vegans of, meat is murder, you're eating my friends. And I just think, everybody can do what they want. And if anything, that probably just pushes people further away from the whole thing and makes you look like a crazy fanatic. So I'll happily sit down with somebody as they eat a steak, and that doesn't bother me. It's a decision I made for myself, and yeah, I like it.
How do you get your protein?
It's in everything.
It is true.
It really is. Like, I think that was always, the question, but obviously, it's in everything to differing quantities, but it depends which route you want to go, right? So you can do the whole tofu and seitan.
Yeah, do you meat replacement?
So I go in phases. Sometimes I do way too much, but then you're like, well, hold on, this is just like ultra processed food. So this is probably not any healthier for me. In fact, it's definitely not any healthier for me. But it is nice to like fill that void sometimes where you're missing that texture or that taste. And, if you're going from steak one day to a meat replacement the next, it's not going to taste like steak. But if you've not had steak in 6 years, then it does a damn good job, because you kind of forget. So
I want one right now.
Yeah, there you go.
They have a great Philly cheesesteak vegetarian one at Mendocino Farms that's on my mind.
Oh, yeah? I've never had it. I've had Mendocino Farms, but I've never had that. I didn't know that.
It's seasonal. Monty's is really good.
That's the thing, especially, in this city.
We have so many options.
So many options. I think I've never been. They say Portland has the most vegan options in the US.
I believe so.
But it's everywhere now. Like, I have a bunch of friends in Austin, Texas, and I go there, and there's options on every street corner.
Yeah.
So it's not like it was 15, 20 years ago where it's like, here's your lettuce. It's like you can always get a good meal wherever you go now.
I'm just picturing just a shred of lettuce.
I remember there was on 911 early, there was like a snack being brought around, and I said I'm vegan, and we had this PA with us who was new, and she said, I don't know if there's a vegan one. I was like, all right, it's not a big deal if not. And she literally said to me, like, do you want like a lettuce sandwich? And I said, I'm all right, thank you, thank you so much, but I'm gonna pass on this one.
Has there been like a tragedy that you responded to on 911 that just felt too real?
So the one that probably hit me, in fact, lines up right with the vegan, I would say. I don't know if this is season 2 or season 3. We had this one of this police horse dying. It was like this, I think it was a Halloween episode, because it was like this big rave event. And we told this story, and I guess, I can't really remember, but I think you're probably watching it as an audience member thinking something's going to happen to the guy on the horse. Yeah. But something happens where the horse goes down, and the actor, he basically sits there and has this horse lay in his lap, and he tells him, you're going to be, you can go and run in the fields now and in the after. And it was so moving. And just something about really having this horse that was trained to just lay down. I remember that one was really in my head. Like there was no acting needed, it honestly. And he was doing such a great job with this kind of eulogy or this goodbye message to his horse that, they'd been partners, that I remember just watching that being like, I don't think I'm ever going to recover. Like, this is so sad. So there are definitely times where, I guess it is dependent when the guest stars come in and they really bring it. Because that's the thing about the show as well. It's so dependent on the guest stars doing a great job, because you have to care about if they live or die. And you have to do that in 2 minutes.
No, you're so right.
Yeah, because otherwise it's, who cares? But they sell the show for us. They have to, because otherwise, what's the point in any of it? We're not heroes if you don't care if the person dies.
Yeah, and you can't save the same person every time.
Right, exactly. So
Interesting.
casting has to continually, and they have, found really great people to come onto the show.
But by the way, same thing with Law and Order. Same thing with
absolutely.
every procedural drama.
Yeah. I think there's a book about it. I think it's called Save the Cat, and it's about how to write things where how do we make you very quickly care about this person that you've just met. But you need to be invested in the story for it to work.
It makes sense. There's a team of people who save people, and those people who need saving need to change every time, and you need to give a shit.
And apparently it can run for 20 years. Who knew?
Pretty cool.
Yeah, no, it is.
How often do you feel like a real firefighter?
Never. Never. When I feel least like a real firefighter is when I see real firefighters.
You're like, yeah, that's not me.
Yeah, and I'm like, wow, he looks so strong. Honestly, and I think that I'm, pretty in shape and then get around, and then sometimes I'll see a fire truck pull up to a Ralph's and they'll get out, and I'll be like, yeah, they'd save my life. They could really do some saving. Yeah, no, never. I mean, in fleeting moments, right? When I'm in the uniform and I kick in a door or whatever. But I think if real emergency was to strike, I'd be pretty useless. I did this thing years ago, this press thing where I had to. I can't remember if I was interviewing him or maybe we were interviewed together, but it was of this real firefighter, and I remember just thinking your hands are so big. He just looks so strong and capable. And I was like, I'm such a TV firefighter. Very, very rarely.
So how do you make it believable? Because there's a lot of firefighters who watch the show. You don't want them to be like, this guy's phony.
Yeah, I guess they would if they saw me in person and stood next to me. Maybe they would realize how phony I am. Camera angles shooting up, no. I think all the work that goes into it around us as well, right? So the fact that there are really things, if it is a fire, on fire around us. And we have real firefighters on set for basically every emergency. All the background firefighters are, if you ever look really closely, most of them are kind of in their 50s and 60s because they're all retired firefighters.
Oh, cool.
That's just a cool way to keep them employed.
Well, yeah. So we have a tech on the show who keeps, says, we wouldn't do it that way. And so he used to be a chief and he brings them all in. So there is very much a real element of LAFD with us.
That's amazing.
So it's nice having them there because we can always ask a question. Would you do this? And sometimes the answer is no. And it's kind of, well, we need to do this for the story. Because that's the thing, right? It's not documentary. It's finding the line. Often the biggest one is, his name's Mike Bowman, the guy. And I'm like, Mike, do we need to wear helmets for this? He said, oh, yeah, we'd wear helmets. And I'm like, I'm not going to wear a helmet, though. And often you'll also notice if you really watch, we go into emergencies in our helmets and then we come out and I've discarded it and I want to look disheveled and, I've been doing stuff. And the problem is, did you lose another helmet? I'm like, yep, lost another one in the fire. That's where that LAFD budget is going. I just, dropped it in there.
Keep losing helmets.
So, there's a line between we want to honor them and have them watch it and be like, yeah, that is what we do. But it's also got to be entertainment, right?
Yeah.
That's you said about people who disagree with the relationships or whatever. I see that sometimes when people say, I don't care about any of the relationship stuff. I want to just watch the emergencies. Like, there's no show on television that doesn't have any personal drama, that it's just emergency after. Exactly. You'd stop caring.
Yeah.
Like, the spectacle is great, but you have to care about the people. Otherwise, you want to go and watch an episode of Cops. Like, that's different.
Yeah.
But that's not what narrative television is. You have to care about the people involved, and hopefully that's what gets the general audience, but also the firefighters. I've had it all the time where they come up and they pretend that like their wife watches it, but then they'll be like, but is Buck going to be okay? And it's always like nice to see that they are invested in that way as well.
You got to try it out if you haven't already. 911. It's waiting for you. Hulu, Disney Plus, link below. I got to ask, I had no idea that you had a birthmark. And I watched the show. Like, I know for some reason, like, it just didn't even register.
Yeah.
Has that been the way it's worked in most of as it relates to roles? Like, does it just becomes a part of the character? I mean,
yeah, I don't think I've ever had it covered for a role.
That's awesome.
There was a point where I would cover it for auditions because my management team would say things like, I don't want your tape to do really well. And then it goes off to some producers, and just one of them is taken out because he's like, what's that thing on his face? So I would cover it for some auditions, but then I've never had it covered for a job. People have always just been like, yeah, I think it's kind of cool. And thank you. And in the early seasons of the show, I would be contacted a lot by people who would say things like, my kid has a huge birthmark on his face. And I almost felt like a bit of a fraud because like I've never been insecure about it ever, even when I was a kid. And sometimes they'd send me a picture of their, 8-year-old who has one and it's like half their face or something. And they're like, seeing you has given him confidence. And I'm like, this little thing, like I feel like I'm not deserving of that. Yeah. Like, thanks for putting it out there because it feels like so nothing in comparison. It's never really felt like a thing that I've had to deal with. Like,
but didn't deter you at all from acting?
No. If anything, like, people always just said, like, did you get hit in the face? And I was like, I should come up with a better story for yes, I did. I remember, so one of the ways that I used to make money before I was working as an actor was I'd do these like role play things for medical students. So while they were learning, but they know or they're meant to know that it's fake, right? And there was this one, and she kept looking at my head, and he's got a laceration on his left eye, which first of all, it's not a laceration. It's clearly not. That's a cut. And I'm also like, then you're going to be a doctor? But it definitely like threw her off. But, all my life, people have said things like, what's that on your face? Birthmark, move on. It never, I tell you, the thing that deterred me more than anything physically was like I had really, really bad acne as a teenager. And that was the one that was like the big deterrent moving into acting, because I always used to think, no one on TV ever seems to, so I don't think I'm going to find any success here. And
then you realize that they cake shit on it and you can't even tell.
Yeah. So my first show that I did before this, my first show in America, I was still very much struggling with acne. And I see it in the episodes, and I'm sure, it's caked on, but, there are only so much you can do. But that was like a big thing that I used to deal with physically of, like, it just didn't feel like there were people on TV that had that and dealt with that. So I was like, I probably am not going to find any success here.
But you did.
It went away. But to be fair, I did. You're right. Even during that time, which I think is a good lesson as well, that there are these things that feel so big to us, when we look in the mirror, that like, oh my God, everybody must look at me like I'm this freak. And then you go into the world and nobody really cares.
It's true. But sometimes people do. Like, I worked at Nickelodeon and I had acne, and they gave me so much of a shit that they sent me to a dermatologist and some lady to do my skin. And
okay.
They cared so much about the way I looked.
Interesting.
So, yeah, it was interesting.
So wait, Nicholas, so like how old were you?
Like maybe 18, 19.
So that must have been like...
It was interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like probably like senior year to like top of college.
Yeah.
So like 18, 19, 20.
So them like sending you to someone, did that feel like...
It was weird. And it was more than, it was like my hair, it was my weight, it was my eyebrows. It was every little thing.
Isn't it so messed up?
Yeah.
Like that aspect of the whole thing where like you must look like this. And I just think that must just mess with your mind so much.
It did, and I remember I remember being the wardrobe lady at one of the shoots. I did so many things, and like one of the ladies was like, "Oh, we're gonna put you in Spanx. We're gonna smooth you out."
Wow.
She put me in Spanx.
How they look?
Fucking amazing.
All right. Yeah. I mean, that's his thing. Yeah.
I've been wearing Spanx every day since.
Can't you tell?
Changed my fucking life.
In that case.
No, but it is interesting because there is a lot of weight. And I remember one of the executives saying, "Oh, we like Zach so much because he looks like everybody else."
So, somebody said to me once, right? It's a very similar vein. I think it was my manager. He was like, something good about you is like, you're handsome, but you're not too handsome. And it's like, thanks. But
You're good looking.
No, but it is important to be like relatable,
Totally,
right?
you're
And
not
so that's actually a
unobtainably
compliment.
Good looking.
Yeah.
It's like fucked up,
So-
but it's also real.
Yeah, and it's also, I don't know about you, but the way that I am, I'm always like looking for the insult in there. And I'm like, that sounds nice, but hold on. Or like, you read the comments on something and you read 500 nice ones, but you're looking for the one that's like really mean to you. And then you see that and you're like, all right, good, I can turn it off now. So yeah, it's so weird, the like mind games and the way we get in our own head.
You're a Cancer.
Yes, sir.
Interesting. Yeah, and you have a good birthday, June 27th. Shared with some good people.
Yeah?
And June 26th is one of my best friend's birthday.
Okay.
You have a good one on 27 though. I think that's like the same birthday as Khloe Kardashian.
I was like, who are the good people you're
Yeah, I
talking
know.
about?
I'm so intrigued.
Khloe Kardashian.
I'll take it.
Yeah, I think that's it. You go to famous birthdays.
Me and Chloe, we
so
have a lot in common.
Oh, no, Tobey Maguire, J.J. Abrams,
Come on, good
Oh.
company.
Ed Westwick,
Pretty good.
Vera Wang.
Wow,
What you?
All right, I'll take it.
not too shabby.
Who knew? Who knew that's what the success I've so far been able to find was down to that?
No, I think there is something to astrology though. I think there
I
is
think
something
so.
to like who you are as a person and like. I am fucking crazy, dude. I am crazy. But where the planets are at and where the oceans and the moon and everything
Yeah.
exists at the time that you're born, I do believe that there's something attached to like how like who we are as people.
I think they're so I have like two very distinct sides to me. One is like very logical and thinks that makes no sense, and the other one is completely like more open and really wants to believe in stuff like that. And I think to some extent, I think you have to be right because there are so many of us that do end, like I would say, I don't know all the traits for all the signs, but I do know the Cancer things. And I would say I'm very much a Cancer. And so I do, there must be something in it. And I remember somebody put it to me like this once where they said, the moon is powerful enough to dictate like the way that the waves move, right? So if it can do that to the ocean, surely it can like pull the fluid in your brain. Maybe I'm so wrong about this, but pull the fluid in your brain to different points, and
Totally.
it must have some kind of bearing on who you are. And so, yeah,
Shit's real.
I struggle with it, but because of those two sides. But I think there must be something in
Do you
it.
believe in collective energy, manifestation?
I don't know. Again, it's like I really want to. And in periods in my life really do and have tried to commit to it. But it's like this thing where I'm always kind of a little bit at war with myself over things like that, where
I get it.
it's like, I just don't know. I really like the idea of it. And I tell you what I really actually do see is that it doesn't really matter if it's real or not. That if you believe in it enough and that you commit yourself to kind of believing in these things, then when those opportunities do arise, even if it's not because of that manifestation,
You're
what you
there.
probably are is you're ready for them.
Totally.
And
Totally.
so that aspect I absolutely can see.
Look at you. You balance, reality and delusion pretty well.
Thanks. Thus far.
What do you think?
When you first got the job on 911 and you walked on set the first day and there's all these like successful actors, were you like, I belong here? Where you're like, what the hell am I doing?
What the hell am I doing? I really, really was. Like, that constant, I'm going to get found out. They've made a mistake and they're going to realize it any day now. I think that honestly that went on for a couple of years. Like I remember at the end of the first season, I was so sure I was going to get killed off for no reason. Like there was nobody got killed off. There was no like, oh yeah, somebody's going to die. There was none of that. And I think, so the show that I had done previously was this show called Into the Badlands. And so we did the first season of that and then we got renewed for season 2. I was like over the moon.
And you got
And I get
killed.
this phone call, and you're going to die 3 episodes in. So that was my only experience, right?
Trauma.
So I think, going into then 911, I was like, well, I know what happens. Great, we got renewed for season 2. They're going to kill me off.
Why do you think they killed you off in Badlands?
I mean, so it was like a post-apocalyptic show where everybody was sword fighting. So, and I was very much like an antagonist to the story. But also, if I'm being most honest, I don't think I was bringing it in the way that had I had that opportunity now, I would want to bring. I think I was so nervous. I think it was like my first time I was a series regular. It was a really cool cable show. It felt very big, and I think I was a little bit overawed by it. And there are moments in that show that I actually think I'm really good in, but there are a lot of moments where I'm like, God, you could have eaten that scene up. Like, you really could have gone places with that. And I think I was a bit tentative and just a bit insecure. So yeah, I honestly think that's part of the reason. Like, it's the kind of show that I wish would have come to me now.
Yeah, because you have thousands of hours logged on
and
something
like,
in comfort.
And more confidence in just like who I am as an actor as well. Like, I think if a role like that came to me now, I'd have so much fun. But I think it was very early on for me. It was a kind of like 0 to 100. I wasn't doing a lot before it. And I think I fell maybe a little bit short because of that.
Why do you think you got the role?
I think I think I've always had, like, I tread carefully and like, I'm a great actor, but I don't know about that. But I do think I've always been able to understand people, and I think I've always been able to feel things very deeply. And so this character was a very tortured character. He was basically like second in line to the throne. His father was like the Baron of the Badlands, and you know, he was meant to be the next in line, but he was a real disappointment to his father. In fact, funnily enough, when I first got the role, he was a closeted gay man.
That's what I thought.
So yeah, these roles just keep falling my way apparently. But yeah, there were just a lot of things eating this guy up, and I think that I was in a place in my life where I was very unsure of who I was, and so I think I connected to the character in a lot of ways because he was just struggling and you know, wrestling with this, I guess quite specific actually, of, you know, when you're young and you get told like you're always going to be fine, like you're good at everything you do, but then you start to feel like you're not, like there's a pressure that comes with that as well.
Totally.
And then that sometimes if you're going to fall short of that, it's like you don't want to hear that anymore. You don't want to hear, no, you're always going to be fine. And so that character was, as I say, he was second in line to being this Baron, but he was also a disappointment because he wasn't actually very good at it. So I just think I connected with him a lot. And I think that's one of the reasons I was able to get that role. But yeah, that role now, I think I'd really have some fun with it.
Too bad. You're stuck playing Buck for the next 150 years.
Yeah. Hey, I'll take it. It's not too
It's
bad.
a sick gig.
It is. And listen, I ride around LA in a fire truck. Like, it's cool. You know, we had a new crew member with us this season, right, who he had to hide low in the truck for one of these scenes to give us a cue to come out. And his like giddiness of, I can't believe I'm in a fire truck, was so lovely because that's worn off on me. You know, like I've been in this fire truck hundreds and hundreds of times now. So it was nice to see somebody's energy of being like, wow, I'm in this fire truck and we're going around LA. Like, it was a nice reminder that we get to do some really cool things here. And, you know, the kind of scale of it is constant. Like, we built this set. So for this cruise ship, there's a bit where the cruise ship capsizes. And so they built this set that could rotate, and it's the biggest one ever built. Which they said that to me, and for us, like, yeah, like they really do invest so much in it that you walk into these sets and we're like still blown away by the things that they're able to create. Or even so we helicopter out to this cruise ship, right? We turn up and there's this like basically a simulator. It's the kind of hub of the helicopter where you would sit, and it's on this kind of hydraulic machine, and we get in there and it's like moving us around like crazy, and there's rain hammering the windows, and like it's just fun. Like, it's really playing make-believe, which is, what acting is. And it's like everything is set up for us that we just got to go with it. Like, I'm really in this helicopter. I'm really getting wet. I'm really being thrown around. It's really just cool.
And that makes your job easier, right?
100%. Like, takes that element of like, oh, I'm moving around. Like, that's taken out of it.
Yeah.
Even we did this thing a few years ago where this is maybe the one time on the show where we didn't have that aspect, or we basically there was this big train crash and the train was meant to be like at this kind of super steep angle, and it wasn't because of just the practicality of that. But we had to pretend like it wasn't. So much energy in that scene went into how do we present the physicality as if we were climbing this almost vertical train carriage. So that was us able to see what it's like when everything isn't made easy. But all the other stuff, as I say, we're on these sets that really do tilt 180 degrees.
That's crazy.
Or we're really in the water for the tsunami or whatever it is. So it's like there's no acting those things. It's just going with it and being in those moments and, trying to find the moments of truth between the characters. But we don't have to worry about the physicality, because if I let go of this railing, I really am going to slide down. So it's nice that everything's kind of as practical as can be.
You got to watch 911. It's waiting for you on Hulu or Disney Plus. Link below. Final thoughts?
What stunts don't they allow you to do? Are you doing all of it?
We do like the vast majority. There was a thing, the second episode of season 1, that we were in this high rise downtown, and there's this man's going to jump out of a window. And this is a real maneuver that firefighters do. If you're going to jump sometimes, they'll come down from above on a harness and they'll swing out and they will just 2-footed kick you in your chest. Like, it's so brutal if you watch videos. They're saving your life.
Yeah.
They're stopping you committing suicide or whatever it is. But the way they do it is like, it looks like a move straight out of WWE or something. Like, it is so full on. But so I was going to do this thing, and I was going to rappel down from the top of this high rise and swing out and kick this guy. And I was in my harness, and as I say, very early on. So I was pretty nervous, but by the time you're like harnessed up, you're kind of committed.
Yeah.
And the director came out to me and she just said, we can't let you do this. There's just too many, because it was, people live in this high rise. And like, if somebody opens their window or something, there were just too many elements that could go wrong. So I think that's one of the only things that I was about to do and it got taken away. Then there are things where it's like mitigated, right? So a couple of seasons ago, this is another high rise. It's actually this building in Hollywood that's like completely rented out by influencers. But we were doing this thing
1600 Vine or some shit.
Very possibly. Yeah. It's right around there. So there was this woman who was going to be, she fell off her balcony by accident, and she was clinging onto this like signage that was there. And so I was able to go up on I'm in my harness and on my line up to like the 13th floor, which was like crazy high. I have videos of it that I'm really like, I can't believe I'm up there. But then with the stunt double, they took him to the 17th floor. So there's just, there's always like layers to it where they'll let me do as much as I can to a certain point. But then, and I don't know if it's like insurance things or what, or just, efficiency and practicality. But so we'll always try and do as much as we can. And then the double will take over from there.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Really challenging every day, something different.
It is. And there are things that I do on the show. Like, if you ask me now to get strapped up in a harness and be dragged up 13 floors of a high rise, no. But there's something about doing it as Buck where I'm a little braver. And we have, great stunt team and everything. So everything feels and is as safe as it can be. But there is something about like the adrenaline of the camera. Even to the point where I remember thinking like, I don't open my eyes underwater unless I'm wearing goggles. Like, you put me in a bathtub and I don't want to open my eyes.
It's going to sting.
And then, yeah, exactly. And then on camera, for some reason, I'm like a mermaid down there. My eyes are like, I'm like getting the shot. I'm moving. So there is just certain things that when the camera's rolling, I'm much more capable of doing.
You got to watch 911, please. Disney Plus, Hulu, link below. Final thoughts?
You hope there's a future for Buck and Eddie, or you just gonna wait and see what happens?
I'm open to it. There's obviously stuff there, and there's a chemistry between us. yeah, if it goes there, then I think it will be. It works two ways, right? Because I definitely see that as a potential story. I don't know what's going to happen with Eddie's character. Who knows? But then I also think you have to tread carefully, right? Because I don't want to tell the story where, like, guy comes out and now all his male friends are like, oh, so wait, you got a crush on me.
Yeah.
Like, I want to be careful of telling that at the same time. But yeah, it's fine. I get asked that question obviously all the time, and I never quite know how to answer because actually I don't get asked that question all the time. I get asked, will it happen? Not do I want it to happen?
Yeah.
So that's an interesting way to ask it. But when people ask me, is this going to happen? I'm always like, I don't know. I don't write the show. But as far as do I want it to, I also don't quite know, but I'm open to it if that's what Tim decides is, the most honest way to continue telling these stories, then yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You got to watch 911. Please, link below. Oliver Stark, thanks for your time today.
Thank you guys for having me.
I really appreciate you, man.
Yeah, it was a great time.
It was a lot of fun. Cool.
Yeah.
Oliver Stark, everybody.
All right.